So the first thing you'll notice when watching this gameplay, aside from my god aim, is that I kill 5 enemies with 1 clip of the Lumen. And that clip was not even full to begin with. The Lumen being my favorite FPS weapon, and here is an alternative, the P4 with an absolutely broken suppressor that basically makes recoil non-existent. I'll show you everything in a moment. We're also gonna look at the new ASD mission from missions from Eckhart Security. Most people haven't even noticed that in the mercenary branch there is red, like they appear in the regular allowed section of missions, but they turn red when you accept them, and they also lead you to the ASD mission areas, okay, where you have to destroy servers. So we're gonna do that, and we're also gonna compare those 2 FPS weapons. And by the way, did you know that you sometimes like jump 3 kilometers close to the base, especially on those Eckhart security missions? That's a little weird. Also, look how I almost killed myself right here. The only chance to survive was making a 180 and using full forward frontal thrust to avoid disaster. And I stopped like 1 meter above the ground, dude. That was close as hell. But yeah, so let's first show you the P4. A very basic weapon, everybody knows it. But what makes this one so crazy is that it's one of the contested zone P4s that you can find in Ruin Station and so on, that comes fully equipped with this size Tau plus LL 4x scope, and most importantly, the Scion Tweaker Compensator 2 with a recoil stability of plus 70% and 50% recoil smoothness. Also ADS time, aiming down sights time, by 20% increase, and spread, it says plus 25. I'm not sure if they really mean plus 25 or it reduces spread. Otherwise it would add spread, which is a little contradictory, but you know what, doesn't matter, because you're not firing at 400 meters with this weapon. You're typically using it in distances like this, and now instead of making single shots to be able to hit with the weapon precisely, you can literally just use full auto the entire time. Every shot goes exactly where your crosshair is, thanks to that tweaker compensator. And yes, there it is, the nice crashes that I keep having ever since a few versions. Loading back in, for some reason I was still alive. I don't know how. There was a bunch of NPC guys around me that somehow couldn't kill me while I was in this state of being frozen or, you know, locked out. I don't know. Super funny. Another thing I want to show you here is that we're using a loud weapon. Do you see the difference? Remember when I've shown you the ADS mission guide, the full tutorial in the top right corner? If you haven't yet seen it, all 7 missions perfectly for you to trace. I was walking through the map and I just killed every enemy at the location where they spawned. They would never move because they never knew where I was. Now we're running a loud weapon, and I think the worm just hit me. We're running a loud weapon, and the entire map seems to be aware of my exact location and coming towards me. So, by the way, I'm glad I didn't die before with the lag, so that I can fall down here like a moron and just die like this. Great. But yeah, so big difference between running loud and running silent. My most favorite weapon is still, and will probably never change, or unless they really do something crazy with new weapons, the Lumen. An SMG that you can, for example, buy on Grimhacks. This thing has 45 bullets, so 5 more than the P4. However, most importantly, the Lumen fires with a much lower fire rate, but much more damage per projectile. So overall, the kill amount per clip is much higher than the one from the P4. The P4 just runs through ammo so quick, it's unbelievable. You can put 8 magazines on you, within 30 seconds you can run through all of them. Like, what the heck just happened, right? But then again, you have this now with this compensator, an insanely accurate full auto system running that in PvP I could imagine is extremely dangerous to fight against. If you just stand for 1 second in that crosshair, you're gone. That is something that most other weapons won't do against you, because they either have a high spread, a lower fire rate, or, you know, for some, they just can't bring in this much damage so quickly, so accurately at one point. This weapon can do it with this compensator, so that thing really makes a huge difference. And it's fun to play. Usually I'm running quiet with the Lumen, but now we're doing the exact opposite. And The reason I'm making this video, also showing you the new missions here from Eckhart Security, which I've just shown you. The reason I'm showing this is because I'm very often being asked what FPS equipment I would recommend. In terms of armor, and I always keep saying this, unfortunately CIG does not leave me much other choice but to say go with heavy armor. You're in here in a level, there's tons of loot for you to pick up. What do you want with a light backpack where basically filling it with your drinks already fills the goddamn thing up, you know? We already in this mission probably ran through 30 or 20 clips of P4 magazines. That wouldn't even fit into a light backpack. So you're not ready for combat, for extended combat. You're not ready for looting, and you're taking more damage at the same time. The only pro is that you're faster. You have a higher mobility. Well, okay, that's cool, but you know, maybe and that's something I keep throwing in, like for everyone to think about. Let's do the high risk high risk target thing in FPS combat. I keep bringing up this idea that I think you should be able to attach any backpack to any armor. Like right now, a heavy armor is required to equip a heavy backpack. But you could argue that, wait, I'm using a light armor, so the armor weighs less. Shouldn't I be able to carry more instead, like as a reward for running a light armor? This is also a way you could ask yourself. And then there's some people saying, yeah, but there's like a mounting system and it snaps only with the heavy. Okay, but you know what, seriously, just change the mounting system and make it one norm. Let me as a player in this huge sandbox universe decide if I want to run a heavy backpack or not. And honestly, in my opinion, equipping a light armor with less damage absorption, less clips that I can put somewhere, and less weight on the armor should at least in return allow me to, carry heavier load on my back. Right? So at least from a realism kind of standpoint, that would make sense in my opinion. But the truth of the matter is, I cannot really advise you guys to go with anything other than heavy armor. In any kind of mission, be it PvE or PvP, you would want the 40% damage reduction of heavy armors. You just want to have that, because whenever you survive a battle with 20% or 15% health, that's because you had the heavy armor. If you had been carrying a light armor and you have 10% left, you die. You would have died, right? So that is something to consider. Secondly, the backpack is a huge argument. I sometimes try running light armors because there are some of them that I just love, like the Aztalan Galena here. That one, oh, it looks so beautiful. I love that. But unfortunately, it just, as soon as I equip it and run the first mission, I notice that either I have a few clips in there, barely enough to make it through the mission, or I have something to drink in there. You almost can't have both. So it's like not useful at all. You can't use it. Yeah, so that is yet another huge reason why I simply just cannot advise you guys to run with light or medium armors. Medium is a little more tolerable, but heavy is really the way to go. And which armor it is, well, I would go with the Morozov, the black one, because it's just dark. And there are no shining lights on the armor. You can literally see sit in a dark corner and no one will see you, because there is no shining light. It doesn't really matter much in PvE, but in PvP it does. And also in PvP it matters that you're not necessarily running the fat-ass armors. So like the Zeus exploration suit or the other one, there are some that make you into a huge Michelin man, you know? And that's the kind of thing that you want to avoid, because from my own testing, that does not only make you look bigger, it also increases the hitbox size of your character. Meaning that some shots that would have technically missed you on another armor are now perfect hits on your big one. So another huge reason to limit the amount of armors that you can carry. I would go with dark armors, not any visual glowing elements on them. That already excludes a lot of them. And then smallest possible hitbox, like the Morozov, right? And then in terms of weapons, there's a lot of choices that you can make. You can also choose to run the P6 sniper, but in most bunkers, I would not go and use that. So that was a HRT mission here on the planet, and we're jumping back into one more ASD from Eckhart Security. Important side info, by the way, before we go back to the weapons. You do not lose reputation anywhere. There are no repercussions on reputation when you do this red Eckhart Security mission. I don't know why it's red. I guess it shouldn't be red. But yeah, so that I tested this. I checked all reputations I had and compared before and after making missions, and there was no change. But you are leveling up Eckhart Security, by the way. So whatever missions follow later, I want to explore that and get to the bottom of this. So I'm leveling those missions so I can then show you some cooler missions later from the Eckhart Security branch in the ASD missions or wherever. Okay, so with them you can now level Eckhart Security. And we're back using the P4 with its mad fast fire rate. It's almost difficult to clear just one elevator of guys because you just run through these 40 shots so quick. Right? And I like the weapon, and like I said, this might be broken, overpowered in PvP with this with this compensator. When you don't have 10 guys to shoot, but just one, and you want to make sure he's not getting back up. Those 40 shots, perfectly centered on your crosshair, are gonna make sure of that. So that's gonna be really insane. But overall, I still consider the Lumen the more interesting choice, simply because you have much more damage per projectile, and it also controls really well. Maybe I can find a really good compensator for it as well, because so far I've been running it with a silencer, which is really good because you're silent. Also in PvP, very useful, by the way. When you board a ship and you're firing open the doors and no one hears it, you know? Big difference. As to the guy sitting on his joystick, like, wait, who's shooting? Who's shooting over there? You know, he's gonna be prepared. So, yeah, silencer is a really, really good way to go, or suppressor, in that case, I guess I should say. And those are two really excellent weapons. There are more than that. You can run a lot of weapons. You would just want to make sure that your weapon has a decent amount of kills per clip. You don't want to be spending too much time in your reload, right? For example, a bad weapon, it doesn't exist in Star Citizen, but a bad weapon would be an MP7. Insane fire rate, short clip size. You get you laser through one guy and you're reloading after every single one of them. So that's just a bad example, okay? And FS9, by the way, is a weapon with a lot of potential kills per clip. Fire rate low, extreme amount of recoil, not easy to control at longer range at all. But within bunker situations, it can be a really good all-rounder. In PvP, I would not want to have the FS9. The DPS is just lower compared to an P4 or a Lumen. Yeah, so that's a little video here showcasing you two examples of first-person gear in terms of weapons that I like. Also, making the topic a little bit about armor. I'm really hyped to hear what you think about the armor thing, okay? About the backpack. Let me know. That is just my opinion. Maybe you have a completely different one. Maybe this is immersion to you, that only a heavy armor can only fit. To me, it makes no sense, because with lighter armor, shouldn't I be able to at least carry more on my back then? You know, just thinking about it. Let me know what your opinion is. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. Manni signing off, and bye-bye, my friends.